Hey guys, Daniel here. I mean, this is another video. I am a coder, which is a child of a deaf adult. You may have seen that film. I don't sing, but I do interview. And in this video, I am immensely honored to sit down with, one of the greats, David Hayter. I mean, if you're a comic book fan, you've no doubt heard of his work. He somehow managed to do the impossible in co-writing the screenplay for the film adaptation of Watchmen, the 2009 version, which was directed by Zack Snyder. Like I said, if you're a comic book fan, you've no doubt heard of it. I have my copy here, written by the fantastic Alan Moore with art by Dave Gibbons. But besides Watchmen, he's gotten to do other stuff. He's the screenwriter behind X-Men. He's gotten to work on X2. And most recently, he's one of the writers on Warrior Nun. But he's a director on as well with Wolves. David, thank you so much for coming on, sir. How are you doing today?
Well, thank you for having me, Daniel. I'm doing very, very well. Coming at you from Los Angeles, which is baking under the sun. And
There's no sun here in Ireland. How dare you bring that up? It's the Emerald Isle for a reason. It just
well,
rains constantly, 24/7.
I would love some rain at this point. So
All right. So my first question: why was there no squid? What the hell's no, no? I mean, maybe we should we'll take it easy. We'll ease into all of it. No, what is the David Hayter, origin story? Were you a comic book fan growing up? Were you given Watchmen at the ripe age of 6 and was forced to digest it, or what? When was this comic book origin story start for you?
from the beginning, my parents moved all the time. My dad worked for this big biotech company, and
Yeah.
we got transferred every 6 months to a year of my life. So we were always driving across the country in our car, and I didn't have any siblings, so I didn't have anybody to talk to. So I read comic books,
Yeah.
and yeah, since before I could remember, I started in on like Archie and Richie Rich and that sort of thing, and then graduated to DC and Marvel, and yeah, just loved it. And eventually, along the way, found like-minded friends who loved comics as well. And in fact, Watchmen came out when I was 15, and
Man.
I had a friend who was reading it, and he loaned me the issues as it was coming out. So, we didn't know what the ending was going to be, and it took like a year to finish it. And yeah,
So
that
you
was a
had to
pretty
sit through
amazing
all that
experience.
waiting to try and to wait for the ending.
Yeah, yeah, and then the last issue was late, like months late, because Alan was having trouble getting it done, and yeah, it was killing us. It was like, yeah, very few, only people my age really know the pain of waiting for the Watchmen comics to come
Exactly.
out.
That's why I'm so lucky. I mean, I love my friends to death, but there's not a snowball's chance in hell I'm lending them my Watchmen. Friendship only extends so far. I'm not giving away my copy. But no, that's
Understood.
interesting. So you just kind of talked about there, growing up reading Watchmen, because I've talked to obviously so much comic book creators, and I mean, no shock at all. Watchmen, so many of them have said Watchmen's the comic that made me want to be a writer.
Hmm.
Well, how timely was it for you? Because I know at that time when Watchmen was coming out, it was obviously so real and like, the themes, whether it be dealing with, nuclear war or, the building tensions between America and Russia. Nowadays I feel like that's not something, believe it or not. Well, I obviously to a certain extent that's not something I have to worry about. And I know because it was so timely. So would you describe, reading that? Was it timely to you, or because you were only 15, you weren't really worrying about missiles falling on you?
No, no. In the '80s, we were always worried about missiles falling on us. Like that was an existential threat.
Yeah.
And there were all these movies the day after, and like everybody. No, we were told that if they fired the nuclear missiles, we would have half an hour's notice to, I mean, kiss your ass goodbye. Basically, there's not much
Look
you
up
can
to
you
the
can get under
sky,
your.
put your hands together. Is that basically it?
Yeah, yeah. You can. I mean, you can get under your desk if you want, but that's not going to
What
help.
difference does it make?
Yeah, so no, we were constantly terrified of it, and that's part of why um as part of why I wanted to, I mean, beyond the fact that the book is so brilliant, it's part of the reason why I wanted to bring it back, because it's not gone,
Yeah.
like the Soviet Union, or the Soviet Union, the Putin has more enough missiles to destroy the world 100 times over, and he's a crazy person. And you know Trump had the same thing, and he was even crazier. So it's,
Wow. Where was Dr. Manhattan when we needed him?
oh yeah, well, exactly. And it's like it's so funny that people, that you say, well, we don't have to worry about it today, and it's like, no, you should be worried about it.
And
It's
everyone
really
loves
bad.
Ireland. The Ireland's just
Everyone loves Ireland. Nobody's going to fire his
I'm
Ireland.
okay. You, on the other hand,
Yeah,
I
no, no,
don't
no.
know. I mean, but that's listen. I mean, is that really my problem? Let's just be blunt. I mean,
Well,
you
unless you want more good movies. I mean,
yeah,
like
you have a desk, don't you? You have a desk you can get under.
I have well, it's a lap desk. It's sitting on my lap, so I could put it over my head.
Yeah,
You
exactly.
know,
So what are you complaining about, really? You're just
yeah, it's a good
overreacting.
point.
You
No,
know.
it's a good point. It's a
Yeah,
fair point. Fair
that. So
point.
if anyone needs any nuclear safety tips, you know where to come. Just to me. But no.
That's
So
right.
I mean, obviously, let's just jump right to Watchmen before we get into some other stuff.
Mm.
How did this even come about? Did you pitch it to a company? Because I know if we're talking about Watchmen adaptations, this is a video I'm in the midst of kind of developing, but we could go back to the 80s when Watchmen just came out. And
Mm.
it was Terrence Gilliam, I believe, who came on for a little bit and was kind of, and then he left it. He said no, because for anyone who doesn't know, Terrence Gilliam, a member of Monty Python, director of some brilliant stuff, some of the Hunter S. Thompson adaptations.
Mm.
Anyone who doesn't know, he came on to Watchmen, and he was about to do it, and then he was like, "Yeah, no, we can't film this." He asked for a big budget, like I think 25 million. He didn't get it. He was like, "Yeah, we can't do Watchmen. It's just impossible." Because I mean, for a comic that size, putting that into it, streamlining that into a 2-hour film is kind of difficult. But he left the
Yeah,
project, and that was kind of a wrap on any Watchmen adaptations for a while at least. So, did a
it was.
company
Yeah.
come to you? Did you go to them? How did that even come about?
Well, after so I got my big break on the movie X-Men, and that was my first screenwriting job, really.
Yeah.
And then it came out, it was a big hit, and my agents asked me what I wanted to do next. And I said, well, if I'm the comic book movie guy, then I want to do the greatest comic book ever written. And so I said, who's got the rights to Watchmen? And my agents were like, oh, you'll never get that made. That'll never, that's a nightmare. But we found Larry Gordon, who's the
Yeah.
producer, used to be the president of Fox, and he owned the rights. And I said, so I pitched him a 6-hour HBO miniseries. I was like, why
Oh,
don't
really?
we do this? Yeah. And then he said, look, I don't know. And TV was very different in those days. He said, look, David, I don't know anything about TV. Can you turn it into a movie? And I said, well, I don't know. And so basically what happened was we pitched it to Universal, and Universal picked it up, and they paid me to write the script. And um, basically all I did was I copied out the book verbatim into script form.
And how many
And
pages did that end up being?
well, it was 175 pages, which
Oh,
is
that's
too
not bad.
long for a movie, but not as much as you'd think. I mean, you have to remember, I mean, it's a big thick book, but it's really just 12 comic books.
Yeah.
And so a lot of space is taken up by art. It's not like Lord of the Rings or anything like that. But it is hugely complex. So then I said, okay, now I'm going to go through the script, and I'm going to take out everything I can that just has to do with like describing movement, things you don't need in a movie, little moments that aren't important. Take out everything you can without removing anything, without removing a single badass line or a
Yeah.
single great sequence, and so on and so forth. And then I was down about 138 pages, and that's pretty much where we wanted the movie to be. That's, the common wisdom is that's roughly a minute per page, so that's a little over 2 hours, 2 hours and 18 minutes, and that's kind of where we wanted it to be. So then I thought, I think we could do this, and then the notable exception is the squid. So let me explain.
Yeah, come on,
Please,
let's get it out there. No, I'll do it. I'll try. I'll compose myself. I'll
will
compose.
you let me explain? Um, so, uh,
I just love
so,
calamari so much, I let
well,
that.
sure, and who doesn't? But no, what happened was I literally signed my contract the day before 9/11.
Oh,
Um,
you're joking.
yeah, like September 10th, 2001 is when I signed my contract for Watchmen. And then the next day, essentially the ending of the book happened in New
Yeah.
York. And all of those amazing images of the squid and all the bodies in Times Square, I was like, we can't do that. Like,
Yeah. Oh, obviously.
A, it's not appropriate. B, they'll never let us shoot it. I just didn't feel right about it. And also, the squid also, in the books requires, it's like a whole different side story of how Adrian Veidt, sorry, there's going to be spoilers here, by the way.
If
Um,
anyone hasn't read Watchmen, they're watching the wrong channel. I mean, at this
well,
point.
exactly. They can go to hell. Sorry, I can't. I can't help doing the accent. I go to Dublin and I'm like, and
Perfect.
they're like, talk normal, and I'm like, I can't.
Everyone
You
will be listening
bastard.
to this and say, I never knew your man who wrote Watchmen was from Ireland. Where is he from?
Yeah.
Donegal, Cork? So I mean, you're pulling it off
Well,
perfectly
I
there.
actually am though. My
Yeah.
mother's side of the family is all Irish.
Nice. Have you ever
So,
been?
just to Dublin, yeah. Yeah, it
Oh,
was
dude, you
amazing.
have to come back one day, man.
I will. I want to. Yeah, I want to come back and I want to just rent a car and drive around the whole country and
And then I'll beat you
yeah.
in person for not putting the squid in. Actually, maybe I'll come around one
Fair
day.
enough.
We'll wait till the end. I'm just my emotions are so worked up, you know. But
I understand. I understand.
once
And
we
but
get
the Irish are scrappy people. I expect a good.
fighting Irish for a reason, you know.
I expect a good punch up now and again
Yeah.
over the loss of an important calamari story point.
That's
So
not a sentence I assumed we'd be bringing up at all, you
well,
know.
I don't
But
think it's a sentence that's ever been said. So we're making history here. So yeah. So there was so in the book, Adrian Veidt has created this island of artists and geneticists and all these people and um, to create this squid and to send it in. And it was like we had so much information to get across in the story about the characters and just to hit all the major points. But kind of like the squid's going to take an extra half an hour
yeah,
to set up and explain and all that stuff. And so those two reasons, I thought, well, maybe we need to change the element at the end. Then the implement of destruction. Then Darren Aronofsky, the brilliant director, was attached for a weekend to do the film.
yeah. I've
And
heard about this, and I've heard I saw him mention like I don't know why people even attach me to Watchmen. I was gonna do it for like a week or something, but he was one of the directors attached anyway. Yeah,
yeah, yeah, but it was literally a weekend, maybe a week for him, but I flew out to New York to have meetings with him and talk about it. And uh and then when I got back, we were with Paramount at that point. Paramount said, "Oh, Darren can't do the movie because he's directing The Fountain, and we want to get that done. We want to get this movie done right away." So Darren dropped out of the project, but he sent me a letter saying, I have a friend who's like a physicist, uh, and he had a really interesting idea for the ending of Watchmen. And he said, shouldn't the agent of destruction be Dr. Manhattan? Like, everybody's afraid of him anyways. He's the
yeah,
one piece of magic in this world that could destroy the world.
yeah,
And, he's the perfect representation of nuclear weapons. And it was already woven into the book that Adrian Veidt was like sucking the energy out of Dr. Manhattan to be able to use it to create teleporters, electric cars, whatever. And so I was like, that's so perfect. He takes the energy out of Dr. Manhattan, creates this explosion with the Manhattan energy signature, and everybody blames Dr. Manhattan.
yeah.
And Dr. Manhattan at the same time is getting tired of the world. So it's like, well, I'll make you the villain. You take off, and as long as they think you're still out there, we'll have peace. So
Yeah.
I thought it was a really brilliant, elegant solution. And so that's how it came about. And of course, not everybody was entirely happy that we lost the squid.
No, I mean, believe it or not, I'm not too pressed about it. I think I'm willing to let it go. I didn't just say, I didn't just flip my iPad. I turned off
Right.
Netflix, canceled my subscription. I said, no, that's the nail in the
That's
coffin.
it. I'm going for calamari.
Yeah, that's it.
These people can go to hell.
I ate it sadly in my room, and that's
Right.
basically that's just a regular Tuesday for me. It always ends with me sadly eating calamari in my room. Uh, but no, let me ask you: was Aronofsky the first director you went to, or was there a director attached before that, or did you guys just
Well,
go to
me,
Aronofsky?
I was the original director attached,
Yeah,
and so I was attached for two studios. What would happen was, everybody wanted to make the deal. So Universal picked it up and we were there for a year. And then after a while, they'd be like, well, can't we make it simpler? Can't we just cut out the blue guy? Can't we make it
yeah,
a buddy comedy between Rorschach and Dan? And I'd be like, no, that's not Watchmen. Watchmen is not about the characters per se. It's about the story. It's this perfect
yeah,
clockwork story that brings together these five lives and perfectly integrates them. So Larry, our producer, had such an amazing contract that it said, anytime we're not happy creatively, we can walk. So we did. So we left Universal. We took it to um, we took it to Revolution, and we were there. They paid for a director's test for me. And then they got nervous and didn't want to make the movie. And then I said, well, why don't I step aside as director and it'll make it easier to get it made. So I did. Then Darren Aronofsky came in. Then he was off. Then it was Paul Greengrass. And Paul Greengrass, we almost got it made. Like we were very close to shooting it in London in 2006, 2007. And then the head of the studio got replaced and they killed the movie. And then our last shot was Warner Brothers. And then Warner Brothers said, we've got a guy directing a movie for us called 300. Would you take a look and see if you think he knows comic books or would be good for this? And so we took a look at 300 and we are like, yeah, that looks pretty good. So
Yeah.
so that's how Zack came on board. And then when 300 was a big hit, we were greenlit immediately.
Man, that's crazy. I mean, I recently got to chat with David S. Goyer, who I'm sure you know is one
I
of
have, yeah.
like the great screenwriters, and he was saying he was talking about this time when he was writing Man of Steel. Studio said to him, you know, if you destroy Superman's pod, how is he going to get back to Krypton? And he goes, I mean, Krypton blew up in the first 30 minutes of the film. Did you not clock that?
Right,
And
right.
and it's like that just shows, I think, to a certain extent, how studios just there tends to be a little discrepancy, especially when it comes to something like Watchmen. Like I can kind of imagine a studio would be saying, you know, look, the guy who eats beans, we want more of him. You know, what's that deal with his mask? Take it off. You know, we'll put some A-list actor under that mask. We'll work it all out. You know,
Right,
but
right.
that's how.
Yeah, well, there was a lot of, and there was a lot of executives telling me, well, we don't understand the movie.
Yeah,
And I was like, you do understand the movie. I can tell by your notes that you understand the movie. You're just afraid the audience isn't going to understand the movie because you're underestimating them. But I'm telling you, the story is so good that if you make it properly, people will respond to it. So
yeah.
yeah, yeah, I mean, dealing with studios can be difficult at
That's a
best.
different video in of itself. It's just you said, and the squids as well. They fought me on that, but I was right, and it's just you know, in a drunken haze, just slamming the studio. But no, so Greengrass coming on. I mean, was this was obviously the point he did the Bourne films, right?
Hmm.
When he's coming, because Greengrass is one of just the greats, and I think his style really would have lent itself to Watchmen. Brilliant, but Zack Snyder's Watchmen, I still feel is like the best Watchmen adaptation you could possibly do. You know, because it's like I've heard when you're going on to an adaptation, there's obviously, you know, sometimes do something different, do something new. There's nothing really you can't write better than Alan Moore, I feel like, at least. You know, I think
That's exactly the point. And it
yeah,
really annoys me when, like, say, the adaptation of It, for example, it's like, there are things that are changed to make the experience different for people who've read the books. But at the same time, anytime you're changing Stephen King's work from one of his greatest novels, you're saying, "Oh, I could probably write this better than Stephen King at his best." And it's like, no, you can't. Um and it's the same thing with Alan and Watchmen. It was so perfect. Why change that? And like I think a great example. I was watching Return of the King last night, the extended version. And what's beautiful about those movies is that Peter Jackson does what he has to do to get them, to make them cinematic, to make the movies move, but every great scene, almost every great scene from the Lord of the Rings books are in the movies. Like you see the Battle of the Pelennor Fields, you see the fight up on Weathertop, like all the things that you've seen in your imagination that you want to see in the movie are there, and they're not
yeah,
rewritten by some screenwriter who thinks that they're cleverer than the genius who spent years putting it together. So uh, yeah, so I always feel that way. It just drives me up a wall when you have an amazing. I just watched the Firestarter adaptation, and it's like that book is so good, and the scenes in it are so compelling, and the stuff they changed in it, I was just stunned. I was watching on a plane, and the people next to me are like, "What's wrong with this man?" Because I was like, "Dog, come on,
where's the giant
why?
octopus? Where is
Where's
it?
the giant? What hack did this to my favorite
I
book?"
assume that just ties into all your work. That's what people expect from you now. And you know, it's very like, and it could be a giant hippopotamus, but that might ruin the formula. I don't know. I don't know. We'll try that.
I
We'll
think as
see
long as
what.
any seagoing creature, I think any water dwelling creature, I
That
think would work.
the swings you're taking are too big. We'll stick with the octopus. That's where we know the readers lie with. But no,
Fair enough.
totally. So Greengrass, did you talk to Greengrass at all? What was that collaboration like? Did he have any of these? Because he strikes me as a director who, I mean, his mind is just, I feel like, prior to none, he's just such a great visual mind and one of the greatest living directors. So it was like collaborating with Greengrass.
Was amazing. I got to move, so they moved me to Paramount moved me to London for 6 months to work with Paul, and it was fantastic. I had an office at Pinewood Studios. I got to live, down in Soho, and it was fantastic. And so, a black car would pick me up, take me out to the studio, or Paul's house. Paul lives out in the English countryside in this beautiful converted 18th century barn that's been turned into a house. He's built a soccer pitch for his boys. He's built in the stables. He's got editing suites, post-production facilities. It's so cool. And every story meeting, he just wanted to take a walk in the woods. So we would walk, and there'd be deer, and like it was just idyllic. And so Paul was, as you say, incredibly brilliant. He wanted to, and his version, I agree, Zack, Zack made a movie that is a true Watchmen adaptation, and
Yeah.
I'm so happy about that. It was amazing. Well, Paul was also doing that, but his style is a lot more documentary style rather than sort of classical Spielbergian, epic. And he wanted to do things like when Rorsch, he had a picture of a homeless guy whose face was just caked in dirt, like creases in the dirt from his wrinkles and stuff like that. And it was a really compelling picture. And he wanted, like, when you pull Rorschach's mask off,
Yeah.
that's what he would look like, that the
Man.
mask never comes off, and even he doesn't, see his own face during the day. So it was stuff like that, and yeah, and he and I, yeah, we did a lot of work sort of pulling the script apart and figuring out. For him, it was very important to establish the steps that were leading towards nuclear war, towards
Yeah.
the conflict, towards the clash between all these characters. And yeah, I really wish we could have seen his movie. There's about 40 minutes of animatics that were done
Yeah.
under Paul's direction. So, somebody finds those files, that'd be a pretty amazing bit of cinema history.
Yeah, I mean, totally. And so when you are coming on to something like Watchmen, I mean, it's one thing if you're doing, I don't know, just a Captain America adaptation, a Hulk adaptation, Iron Man, Avengers, because there's just a wealth of stories you can pick from.
That's
There's
right.
different comics, different runs, different creations, different ideas. But Watchmen is Watchmen. There's one
Mhm.
Watchmen. There's not more, nothing less. This is Watchmen. So when you're trying to come on and put that into story form, was that a daunting, and did you kind of find any challenges that maybe you wouldn't find adapting another comic book character when you were doing something like Watchmen?
No, no. When something's that well written, it's not that terribly difficult to adapt. I mean, the only problem was the length, the complexity, but we managed to, like I say, I managed to figure out how to fit it into a movie format, how to fit it into the running time we needed. But what was difficult was protecting it from the studios to keep it pure and to keep it Watchmen,
Yeah.
and still convince somebody to give us 150 million dollars. That was the real trick of it.
Yeah, I mean, totally. I mean, I think the fact that you did that, I have to commend you on, because I think it helped, lead into this really, really amazing film. But let me pick your brain on this. Spoilers, basically, for Watchmen or not. If you've probably read it, I don't. If you're still watching at this point, you basically probably have it already spoiled. You're probably thinking, why do they keep talking about octopuses? But no,
Right.
is this true? Can you true or false this for me? Did you originally want to kill Ozymandias at the end?
Yes, I did. I really and I loved that scene because here was my issue. So Dan Dryberg, Nite-Owl, is like
Yeah,
the most human of the of the characters, right? Of these superheroes. He's impotent, he's sort of middle-aged, he's, like everybody else is still tough as nails, or they've got magic powers or
yeah,
whatever. And Dan is sort of, past his prime, and he's this very human guy. And he gets caught up in this um in this massive world-changing thing that's just too big for one man to deal with. But then his best friend, Rorschach, says, no, you never compromise, not even in the face of Armageddon.
Yeah.
Right is right and justice is justice, and that's it. And Dr. Manhattan says, no, you can't punish Adrian, because if people find out about what's happened here, the world goes back to nuclear destruction and so on and so forth. You know, it's this perfect choice. And then I thought, in the middle of the night, you know, Dan is just dealing with it, and Rorschach's dead, his best friend is dead, and he wakes up and he just can't live with it. And so he goes upstairs and he tells Adrian, you know, that what you've done is wrong. And he's like, yeah, but, you know, as John said, you can't expose it or everything's ruined. He's like, no, I can't expose it, but I can kill you. And I can punish you for what was done to Rorschach. Now, of course, he can't do that either, because Ozymandias is stronger than him, faster than him by a mile. Yeah. But Dan can't live with it. He just can't live with the loss of Rorschach, so he's going to take him on. And eventually, Adrian's about to kill him when Dan, you know, the owl ship has been. This is really a deep dive. The owl ship has been defrosting for 24 hours on the ice, and Dan calls it with the remote, and this huge beam of light comes through. He says something about, he's like, you know, Adrian's about to kill him, and Dan says, you know what I love about owls? You never hear them coming. And then boom, these lights come on, and the ship comes crashing through the wall and smashes into the both of them. And Dan manages to survive, and he gets up, and Adrian has been crushed. And in the end, the ending is exactly the same. He says, look, as long as nobody finds out that Adrian was behind the Dr. Manhattan thing, the world stays safe, and so on and so forth. But he makes the point to Adrian, he's like, we don't need you to run it. You know, we don't need you. Like, you think you're the only man who can run the world, and that's just ego. So you can go. And I thought it was a really cool scene. I mean, again, different from the book. But in the book, you know, poor Dan is just an observer. He just watches it all happen. And I thought, wouldn't it be cool if he had some hugely significant impact on the ending of the story? So
totally, man. That's such a cool moment, because I mean, like Ozymandias as well. Like, he's a brilliantly written character, and I just despise him so much. You know.
I know, right?
And, I mean, let me ask you this: have you gotten to watch, you know, the recent HBO Watchmen show?
I did, yeah.
What did you think of it? Were you a fan? Did you like it?
Yeah, I thought it was. Yeah, I thought it was really brilliantly executed. I thought Regina King was astounding. I thought it was so clever in the way that it created, you know, it felt like it was genuinely in the Watchmen world, but was completely new set of stories. Yeah, I thought it was really, just a brilliant.
Yeah, man, totally. I mean, like, the thing about Watchmen adaptations is, like, I'm surprised that they've all been so great, because it's one of those books that's literally a nightmare to adapt, and yet there hasn't really been a bad one put to screen, you know. And like Damon Lindelof, one of just the greats. I mean, it's like, I love the TV show so much, and then Jeremy Irons as just an older Ozymandias.
So yeah, he's amazing.
And he just lets out a massive fart in the middle of court at one scene, and it's like, this is what your script was missing, David. Where was that?
Oh yeah. Where was the gassy Ozymandias? Well, that doesn't. I don't think Ozymandias was farting in front of anybody until he was completely humiliated in front of the world, and then
it's a silent act, so there's no way to say it didn't happen in the comic, because, you know,
it's a silent but deadly act.
But that's you know, that can be one of the chapters names. But no, let me ask you this: while you were writing the script, did you have any plans or any actors you would have liked to have seen play these characters? Because at that point, I can't imagine casting was even a thing. So were you thinking, oh, I think this actor would be a good Rorschach, or this actor might do a good Ozymandias, or was it just blank characters in your head?
No, no. Well, we were casting with Paul Greengrass. Like, I mean, we were into it. So I loved the idea of John Cusack for Dan Dryberg.
Man.
Yeah, I thought he would have been great. At one point I suggested Denzel Washington for Dr. Manhattan, because I was like, you need somebody who just is believable as a god, you know, as somebody who's just so confident and so prepossessed and so powerful, you know. And so I thought Denzel would be amazing. Can't remember. I mean, a lot of people were discussed, but those are the two that stand out to me. I don't know that I ever came up with a great Rorschach casting, at least not better than Jackie Earl Haley. I mean,
Oh, totally. And it
he
like he literally looks
he's
like
so
he's ripped
amazing.
from the comic.
I know
Um,
he's just straight out of the comic. He's yeah, he was perfect. So
He nailed that voice. It was, oh man, it was absolutely fantastic. But no, when you were doing something like, because is this true? You wanted to make it more contemporary, like you were thinking about setting it in 2004 as opposed to the the 1985 basis of the comic. Because of course, as great as that is, and kind of we touched on this, of course, there is still a chance you'll be blown up by missiles. Not me. I'm safe. I'm always safe.
not
But
you. I mean, listen, nobody's going to go after Ireland.
yeah, check your pulse because I mean, if we see a big white flash behind David and then it just everything stops, we know what that's about. And then I'll
Could
get the
happen at
last
any
interview.
time.
I'll
That's
get
that's right. This will be, you can turn it into an NFT or something.
exactly. Then I can do
Very
it.
brand new
I can
purpose.
sell it to Screen Rant or something, whatever gets the article. Because this isn't for love of comics. It all comes down to brass tacks and money, which is what everyone
Yeah,
should
of
take away.
course.
Don't do anything for passion. Always do it with the intent of commercial gain. But yeah,
Well,
my
do it
question
with
was,
do it with passion. Make sure somebody pays you for it. I think is
yeah, what you said. But is it true you wanted to make it more kind of contemporary and not set it in 1985, or am I mistaken in that?
I don't know that it's that I wanted to. I think one of the studios insisted that we bring it up to present day. And I thought, uh, I thought that that was something I could give them without costing too much. I mean, it was still about the end of the Vietnam War, and they could have still been old enough to have dealt with that.
Yeah.
And well, Dr. Manhattan doesn't age, so he could have been, there in Vietnam and still be 30 today. Uh, so yeah, so I think it was just a suggestion of one of the studios, and they're like, and I kept saying, no, we can't change this, we can't change, no, you're not going to change this. And so finally, I was like, yeah, okay, I can see that. So yeah, so we did do that. That was the Paul Greengrass version was set present day,
Yeah.
like 2006 or whatever. But really with an eye towards not changing it too much because of that. And then Zack, because Zack was suddenly a top A-list director, he was able to say, no, I'm setting it in 1985, and and that was fine. So I love that it was set in 1985,
Yeah.
but at the same time, like I say, I thought it was valuable for kids like yourself to realize, oh no, all those weapons are still out there, and we could still, look at the U.S. and
Dr.
Russia now.
Manhattan drill, you're saying?
That's not what I'm saying in any
That's what
way,
you're
shape, or
saying? Did
form.
you just confirm it, Dave? That's all I
I
heard
guess I
from
did.
that. Sorry, that's
Yes,
all I
I did.
heard.
Sure. No, whatever you hear is probably what happened.
Missiles
Um,
aren't as fun as Dr. Manhattan, though. So,
no, not at all. So yeah. So I kind of wanted to remind young people today that there's like 1,600 some odd nuclear missiles pointed at their heads at any given time. So you might want to bear that in mind when you're
thanks,
voting.
David. I'm glad
Yeah.
I got to do this interview. I'm learning a lot. I thought it'd be a fun educational comic chat, but no, it turns out we're always on the verge of imminent death. Nothing really matters. We should all kind of give up. Why do we try? What's the point in anything? But at the
Correct.
same time, Rorschach does like beans. So, you tell
He
me
does
which.
like beans, and you were asking me about that. And look, I think the significance of the beans. You were like, why does he like beans so much? The
That's the
significance,
first email I sent you. I didn't even tell you
yeah,
anything about me or anything like that. I just said, here.
no, but that told me a lot about you. But so what the beans indicate to me is that he's homeless, and he's willing to just eat a can of cold beans out of a thing. It looks, he's got his filthy jacket and everything, and just eating out of that can makes him look like a homeless guy and sort of reinforces that whole motif. So I think that's why I mean,
That
you'd have
just
to
shows
confirm
how
the
great of a
talent. And
screenwriter you are. I didn't actually realize there was meaning behind that. I was just, but the fact that you can come, I mean, that just shows how layered I think Watchmen is and how we can still find meaning in it. But let me ask you,
totally.
if you were going to do Watchmen, like right now, say we never got Zack Snyder's adaptation, which I mean, knock on wood, I'm so glad we did. But would you do anything differently? Looking back, is there anything you think you would like to see in the film that you didn't get to put in the script, or are you happy with what ended up on screen?
Well, I'm happy that we got it made. I'm happy that it felt like Watchmen, like we achieved the assignment. I think um I I would have liked to have seen the 6 hour HBO version. Um,
Yeah.
I think that would have been pretty cool if HBO had really let us do it the way it was meant to be done. I think that would have been cool. I feel like the one like if you go back and reread Watchmen, and you should, and you should look, you're what are you, 14?
15.
15, good Lord, and all that personality, congratulations.
I don't have much else going for me, but
Well, not yet, but you'll be wealthier than me by the time you're 22, I guarantee it. So but rereading Watchmen, first of all, reread it at different points in your life. Read it when you're 22, read it when you're 27, read it when you're 35, and it changes. Like it's just,
yeah,
it's amazing. But the coolest thing about it to me is that every single line of dialogue and every single frame that Dave Gibbons drew comments, makes an ironic comment about what's happening in the frame. So, like, for example, and we do have this in the movie, Dan says something like, as it's over a shot of Dr. Manhattan putting on his necktie, and the necktie twists itself up and ties itself. And Dan is saying in the voiceover, I just don't know how things got so tangled up like this. Like there's little references to what is happening in the
really,
frame, ironically set against the dialogue. Like, and I'm telling you, I think it's every single frame. So for example, when Dan is walking out from having met with the older Nite-Owl, he walks past a sign saying, it's a mechanic shop, obsolete models a specialty. And you just see Dan walking next to it, and he's the obsolete model. Like, go through frame by frame, and it's amazing. And I wish there had been more focus on that. But I mean, that's difficult
yeah.
to do with
That's
400 or 500 shots.
That's amazing, and I know Dave Gibbons and Alan Moore, like they met up in a bar and they literally broke down what they wanted Watchmen. I heard that from Brian Bolland, and they literally broke down what they wanted Watchmen to be, and I mean, the amount of work that went into that. I mean, it's
It's
crazy.
insane. Yeah, it's insane. And well, somebody just put out on I just saw it on Twitter. Somebody put out like the first page of description of the script that Alan Moore wrote to give to Dave, and it's so crazy detailed. Like also, I mean, I don't know if you know, but the blood slash across the happy face are clock hands that are heading towards midnight.
Are they actually
Yeah, look at it.
the blood? Let me see
Should
this.
be
Sorry,
on should be on the cover of the book.
show me the cover. I don't think. No, it's not on this cover. This is
Oh, it's not on that cover. Okay.
this is
Yeah.
the
Oh, but just
paperback.
to go to the first page. It's on the first page. Yeah. Those are clock hands.
Yeah. Matt, you do learn something new every day. This is what you're saying. I don't think that's really insane. I didn't even clock that till now, but yeah, that
If I
just
if
shows
I
there is
went
something.
through if I went through the book frame by frame, it would blow your mind.
Yeah.
I just like look at what's said, just go to the middle of the book, pick a frame, look at what the dialogue is saying, and then look at the picture in the background.
All right. There's so
I
many good.
better not be wrong, but we'll see.
All right, let's see if I can find a good one to pick out. I don't know. There's just so many. All right, so here's the Pagalecci. I went to go see a clown
Pagliacci,
today.
yeah, yeah. Oh, yeah, yeah. Okay, um, so go to the part where he says, go see the great clown Pagliacci. That should pick you up a bit.
In the future, he saw the true face. Her joke: once man goes to doctor. Doctor says treatment is simple. Great clown Pagalaschi is in town tonight. Go and see him. That should pick you up. And that's when he's picked up and thrown out the window.
Thrown out the window. Yeah,
Man, there's so much. That's yeah,
so
I can't
much.
believe you can just pick that out, man. Oh,
Oh yeah.
totally. And that's just all throughout the book. So, man, the fact that you actually managed to condense that is, I mean, that's truly, truly phenomenal. But looking back, what are you proudest of that you got to do in Watchmen? Are you just proud that you got to put it out there and got to make a fundamentally great Watchmen film?
Well, what I'm proudest of is that we got to present Alan and Dave's ideas and vision, and like the concepts behind the movie, the exploration into human psychology, and what it's like what it means to live on Earth, what it means to create life, and what a miracle each one of us is. Like those ideas, so brilliantly expressed, got out to a much bigger audience than just the comic book reading crowd. And so that's what I'm most proud of. And now, people tell me they teach university courses on Watchmen. and partially because of our movie and because we
Yeah.
got it out to the world. So that's what I'm most proud of. I really the book meant so much to me and taught me so much about life and storytelling and all of it that I'm really happy that a young man like yourself, all these years later, is inspired as well. I mean, you're smart enough; you probably would have found the comic book regardless. Um, but I just that means a lot to me, and I think it's
No, totally,
really
man.
really
I mean,
cool.
it's like you've done so like I can't thank you enough for actually putting down to screen. Like yeah, it actually was the film like on Netflix. I saw it and I heard so much about Watchmen by then, and it was like, oh, so this is something that because it's like it's one of those things like if you hear about like Star Wars to a certain extent, you're gonna be like, well, I've heard about it so much. I'm just like it doesn't even occur to you to watch it because it's this thing. But so that
Right.
really did encourage me to read it. But no, thank you so much. But some of my last couple of questions, and before I let you go out of all your comic book works, if you could, what's your dream job as a screenwriter? If you could write on any script, any project, any franchise, is there? Are you happy doing your own stuff?
Well, I'm happy doing my own stuff. I'm happy doing, whenever they pay to write a movie or a TV show, that's pretty good. And I love doing Warrior Nun.
Yeah.
We've got this crazy show that we can do anything, and it's really fun, and it's about girl power, and it's about, young women being awesome, and so that's really fun. Um, my dream project, well, I've always loved Batman. I'd love to do a good Batman movie.
What
I've
Batman villain would you use?
I don't know. You always
Condiment
want to.
King?
What, the Condiment King?
Do you not know Condiment King? Will I tell you who
No, no,
Condiment
no.
King?
I think I've heard of Condiment King.
Man, all right, so I've interviewed so much comic creators, and I'm staging a coup to get Condiment King his own series. Like I'm infiltrating into it. I'm just subtly dropping hints, subliminal messages. Like occasionally a flash of Condiment King will pop up and then it'll go back. So then we eventually will just get Condiment King in every comic. It hasn't worked yet, but we're getting there. So yeah, once that does happen, just pitch Condiment King because he's a character who writes himself. I like to
Yeah,
look at the ketchup as a metaphor for capitalism. You may not
sure.
see it because because you just don't have my brain. But when you really look at a character like that,
Understood. Yeah. Yeah,
it's
yeah, yeah. No, no. Well, I'm just eking by, but what is his tragic backstory? Like, why the condiments?
what he went to go get a burger and it just there's no condiments, and it set him on
You're
this
kidding me.
spiral. It gets worse. It gets worse. It set him on this spiral. There was no pickles either. He didn't see the point in living, and it's just this really gritty neo noir. Have you ever seen the Roman Polanski, Jack Nicholson film? Yeah, that one. Forget its name. It
Yeah,
doesn't
yeah.
matter. But he basically goes through all this, and then it's a journey about him finding ketchup again, and it's a message film about love because that wins Oscars. So basically, I have it all figured
Sure.
out.
You
We'll
really do. I
you
think you
handle
were
all the writing stuff. I've just
the
given you
writing. Yeah.
all the there. I'll
Well,
take
I
credit.
mean, like you say, it writes itself. I mean, I didn't realize that there were no condiments, and that'll set you
I
off
get a
on
bit
the.
emotional when I talk about this. It's just sorry. It gets me a little bit. Just yeah.
I understand.
But
I
no, is it
understand.
true? Because my sister is the biggest Black Widow fan. Did you almost do a Black Widow film?
I did. I wrote it. I was attached to direct it in 2004. Yeah, I think the script is online, or somebody bought it on a street corner in New York once and said,
Yeah.
"Is this your script?" And I said, "Show me the first page." And I was like, "That's my script." Um, but yeah, I was attached to do it with Lionsgate, and it was before Marvel had decided to make their own studio. But my friend Charlize's movie Eon Flux came out and didn't do well, and so the studio said, "Well, female superheroes are never going to work," and so they killed the movie, and we were a little ahead of our time, which was a shame.
Yeah, and I feel like Watchmen is very ahead of its time. Like, I mean,
Totally.
nowadays, if like, I mean, it's crazy because this is like when I saw it, I was thinking, did this come out last year? Is this a new film? Like, but because it's like you look now, R-rated comic book films, people love that, man. I mean, it's
Yeah.
like it's the new cool, essentially. R-rated comic book movies. So I mean, I think that's totally ahead of its time. I think now people are like, I mean, now people, I think obviously everyone knew it was great fun, but now I think more people are putting their eyes on it because of that R-rated resurgence, which is brilliant. But I think
Mhm.
also, like I was chatting with David Goran, what was interesting was Blade was kind of the start of superhero films. You could say the exact same for X-Men. So within a week, I got to chat with two of the screenwriters behind that. But coming from X-Men, did you like now looking at the state of superhero films? How crazy is that?
It's crazy. I mean, well, as you say, Watchmen was so ahead of its time, nobody wanted to make it. I mean, they knew that comic book films were hot and they were trying to do that, but they were afraid of anything that wasn't sort of, poppy and fun, and it wasn't X-Men, or Sam Raimi's Spider-Man,
Yeah.
Um, now, I always say it's just an amazing time to be a comic book fan. You get everything you ever dreamed of is being made, like Sandman. I've been waiting. I wanted to do Sandman for forever. I talked to Neil Gaiman about it years ago, and talked to Johnny Depp about playing Dream, and
Yeah.
um, yeah,
Johnny Depp seems to have been attached to a few. I was talking with Garth Dennis. I don't know if you've ever read Preacher, and there was like
uh-huh,
there
of
was a
course.
time
I They
where
had talked to me about adapting Preacher too, but I was like, this is too crazy. I'm
what
never
Johnny
gonna.
Depp?
No, no, just the producers of, or
Yeah,
the
oh,
owners,
Preacher is great,
the
but
owners of Preacher.
you didn't do Preacher, no?
It was so disgusting and so gonzo in your face. I didn't really grasp what it was. And then when they finally made the show, they made it so funny and so engaging in a way that I didn't really get from the comic book. It was my fault. It wasn't Garth's fault. It's an amazing
Totally. I mean,
piece.
Garth is like probably one of the greatest writers from Ireland, and his work is so inappropriate for me to read, and I just love it so much.
Totally, totally. And so I kind of felt like, I think I felt like nobody was going to make it, that
Yeah.
I put all this work into it and that it just wouldn't get made. So no, so I didn't end up doing Preacher, but in any case,
Yeah.
I can't
Oh,
remember what we were talking
Sandman,
about.
you were talking about doing Sandman with Johnny.
Sandman, yeah. So now Sandman's on TV and it's like being done properly. Like it's really, it's a proper adaptation of those books. If you haven't read the books, they're amazing, and you should read them, because if they cancel the series, you won't see how the story ends. Like the stuff
Yeah.
he's setting up in the beginning that doesn't, you won't pay off for years of your life, and then it comes and you're like, oh my God, that's where that went. It's so cool. So
I've read some Sandman. I'm ashamed to say I haven't read much. It's one of the, I need to get on it, but like I said,
you need
it's
to
one of
you need
those.
to read it all the way through. I mean,
Yeah, from the start. Yeah,
it's the epic story that just goes, it's got a beginning and a middle and an end, and it's amazing. So I highly recommend that. My point is that what an amazing time to be a comic book fan. I think we're a little overloaded with comic book movies now, and they tend to get a little repetitive. But I do love, when they really do something different with it, like Logan or Deadpool,
yeah,
or you know, those, stuff like that is just really, really cool to me. And that's what the comics did. They used to be all, it's Superman, it's Batman, or whatever, and then they just got more and more twisted, and then there were comics for adults, and then there were comics that were still for kids, and you get all that stuff. And so um, the movies and TV are reflecting what comics went through in like the 70s and 80s.
totally. And so, I'll let you go in a minute, but let me just say, looking back on the X-Men, I mean, that was obviously your first kind of superhero script adaptation. How much did you learn from doing a film, especially with such a large cast? Because it's different from doing Watchmen. Like you can take from Claremont's run. I don't know if Grant Morrison was doing X-Men by then. Maybe it was a little bit after. But you can take from all these different X-Men stuff. So what was it like doing something like X-Men? Because it's such a broad, like what storyline do you adapt? What do you even do?
Yeah, well, I learned a huge amount because it was my first. I mean, I had produced and starred in a little movie prior to that, and I'd been in some little movies, but this was my first big studio movie, and I learned, and obviously I was the screenwriter, so I had to learn a lot. But what I did was they gave me a credit card and an account at the Silver Snail comic book shop in Toronto, which is a legendary
I've
comic
been
book
there,
shop. Oh
yes.
yeah, which is an amazing, amazing place. And so that's where I picked up Sandman for the first time on, and Fox paid for it, which was, or I'm sorry.
Tax
Um,
write-offs. Tax write-offs. Is that
oh
it?
yeah, no, Fox paid for it. Yeah, that was pretty great. Uh, but I also got all these X-Men comic books, and pretty much everything from the X-Men movies I worked on was from the Claremont era. That's when I was a kid. Those were the stories I knew and loved, and so that was the era I focused on. And there's, like, for example, I got this comic book, and it was a scene with Wolverine and Jean Grey, and they were sitting under a tree, and she looks at his knuckles and says, "Does it hurt when they come out?" Meaning the claws, and he says, "Every time." And I was like, "That's such a great line," because what it means is, yes, it hurts when they come out through his skin every single time, but it also means that that people around him get hurt and that he gets hurt, like that it's just they're instruments of pain and they're just a part of him. And I just thought that was so brilliant. So I said to Brian, the director, I was like, we got to put this in the movie. So we did. And I guess Chris Claremont was watching the movie, and then when that moment came up, he like stood up in the theater and was like, "Yes!"
Claremont, I got to interview Claremont. He is such a wealth of knowledge. I mean, I feel like honestly, he wrote the X-Men for 9 years. I feel like he could be writing it to this day. I mean, I chatted with him. I chatted with him for 2 hours. I must have asked him 4 questions, honestly. Right. And it's like he's just such a, and he can just fire. And he was talking about all these amazing moments about how he would do it, and he's such. I mean, his X-Men is one of the fundamental superhero stories, I believe, of all time. And it's great when a screenwriter can respect that and also come in and do something new. And yet there was no giant octopus, but it was still a great film. I mean, sometimes
but there was a build towards Dark Phoenix, which is what everybody wanted. And, unfortunately, we didn't get to do the third movie with our group. And,
was that what you were building towards?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Nice.
So I wrote I wrote a sequence for X-Men 3 where Jean has become Dark Phoenix. Well, she's becoming Dark Phoenix. She's got all this power now. And then the U.S. Army is like going to round up mutants. And she says, they want a war. I'll give them a war. And so we just cut to Washington, D.C., and the bronze statue of Iwo Jima, where the soldiers are putting the flag in like this.
Yes.
And suddenly it turns orange, and suddenly it melts, and this line of fire just goes like this and flies through. And then there's this army, the U.S. Army is marching down the street, and she just wham comes down in front of them and says, turn back now. And
that's amazing.
And she faces off with the entire U.S. Army, which was going to be pretty cool.
That's such a great moment. Who's your favorite X-Men?
Well, Wolverine is the coolest. I mean, I think everybody agrees on that. He's, a lot of where I got my personality is from Wolverine. But I always loved Cyclops. I always, when we'd play X-Men when I was 12, I'd always be Cyclops. And so I always had a soft spot for him. And I love them all like they were family, Colossus and Kitty Pryde and Nightcrawler. And, I was just so in love with those Claremont.
No Gambit love. No Gambit love.
I can't hear you.
Gambit.
I think you're breaking up.
You're one of those. You're one of those. Okay, no, that's fine. That's fine.
I took Gambit. I took Gambit out of the first two movies.
Yeah, that was you. You did it. You thought I had a problem with you with the octopus. Give me a second.
No. Now you got to recalibrate because I was like, first of all, the accent's stupid. Second of all, and it's not going to work in live action. Second of all, he essentially has the same power as Cyclops.
Cyclops can't throw cards at people.
He doesn't need to because he's got the most powerful beams.
Oh, but cards are so much cooler, and he doesn't wear a leather. He doesn't wear like a big trench coat. You clearly don't like. Obviously, Gambit throwing cards.
He doesn't wear a big trench coat.
Yeah.
The outfit of perverts and homeless detectives.
Exactly. That's what makes it so unique. Exactly. He could be either. That's the dichotomy you play with. Which one is he? Should we let him around the younger mutants? That's
right. Daniel, I apologize. It was purely my prejudice against Gambit that kept him from being in the first couple. Movies,
I guess I'm told to forgive. So I mean, I can
whatever. You can
journey.
We can be enemies for life, or we'll have a good Irish punch up when
works either way. I mean, honestly, don't worry, I forgive you. But I don't think we could wrap up on a better note. David, thank you so much for chatting me. Before we finish up, my last and final question: what advice would you have for anyone looking to get into screenwriting?
Good Lord.
Write a Gambit prose, just pitch it around.
No, don't do that. Okay,
people now love Gambit. Deal with that dichotomy we brought up. Should we let him around the younger ones? Is he holy? You could tie all that in and tell you can put my own character, Relish Ravager, not Condiment King for anyone from DC watching, that they're very big into their copyright. Just is that kind of the sum up of your advice?
No, not in any way, shape, or form. No, my advice is start writing write as much as you possibly can. Write. Here's my advice: write a screenplay. Don't judge it. Don't think about it. Just write it and then put it away. Then write another screenplay because your first screenplay is probably horrible. Write another screenplay. That one's probably horrible. Put it away. Write your third screenplay. And by then, you're going to start figuring out what works, what doesn't, edit it, figure out how to edit it, then go back, pick up the first two screenplays, rewrite those, and you'll have a body of work that you can sell because there's nothing worse than like working your whole life on one screenplay and then you sell it and it gets made and you're a big screenwriter and they're like, what do you have next? And you're like, nothing. And it's better to have more pieces of material sitting by to get it done. And then
That's
just
advice.
chutzpah.
That's advice from the legend himself. And I mean, out of all of your, projects, what do you consider to be the ultimate David Hayter project? Is it Warrior Nun, or what would you hand someone to say if you want to know who I am, this is the project you should watch or experience or whatever?
Well, I think X2 is my favorite. In X-Men 1, the writer before me was my friend Christopher McQuarrie, who's one of the greatest
Oh,
living
such a
screenwriters.
nice person.
Oh yeah,
I'm in the
lovely.
midst of arranging a chat. He's so cool. I mean, I'm such an immense fan of his work, and I think he's one of the
Oh,
greatest screenwriters
well,
there is.
I will send him a text right now and tell him to definitely do the interview
No,
with
no,
you.
no, don't. I don't want it to hate me any more than he
He
does.
won't.
No.
He won't. He's the nicest man in the world. He's busy.
He's so genuine. I'm really looking forward to it. I mean, I think he's in post on mission, or maybe he's in the middle of it. But he's in England on, like, I think August 11th. But yeah, so was he on X-Men before you?
Yeah, yeah. So he did the past. So he wrote like the opening Auschwitz scene and a couple of the speeches and I mean some brilliant, brilliant stuff. And then when I was told to write the screenplay, I was like, I think I just better try to imitate Chris McQuarrie's voice, which is more elevated than me, wiser than me, cooler than me. And so that's what I was trying to do. On the second movie, I was like, okay, now I can talk in my own voice. I made some
Oh,
jokes in the first movie where that felt like me, and I feel like I could stretch. So like I just jumped in and wrote the opening Nightcrawler attacks the president
oh, one
sequence.
of the greatest openings of him just leaping over and disappearing. I mean, dude,
Thank you.
Nightcrawler.
Yeah, so I feel like, and that script is co-written with Michael Dougherty and Dan Harris, so they have a lot of elements in it too. But the scenes that I did write, I feel really reflect, my voice, and like particularly the scene where Magneto breaks out of prison, pulls the iron out of that guy's bloodstream, and creates the two
Yeah.
little balls that like
That's
destroy
so
everything.
comic booky. I love it.
Yeah,
It's so
it was
great.
really fun. It was
Man,
really fun.
that's some of the greatest. But X2, that's really, really interesting. Before we finish up, any projects you can promote or talk about, or anything that people can go check out? Warrior Nun season 2, is that coming out or is it out?
It's coming out. We shot it last year in Spain. I got to live in Madrid for 6 months, which was awesome. It's all I know is Netflix has put out the trailer, the teaser trailer for season 2, and they say it's coming out in the winter. So I don't know what that means, but please check it out. Please check out the first season because I think it's really, really fun, and the second season is going to blow the doors off. I mean,
Yeah.
it's huge and it's crazy. I'm very, very proud of it. So yeah, so check that out. All the other things I'm working on, I can't really talk about until they're announced, but
Our Condiment King series comes out soon. I don't know when. Or Relish
Condiment King,
Ravager, depending
I've
on
been
whether or not DC let me do it. But because
now, could
apparently
Relish Ravager be, uh,
it's
would he be a
character
foe of the
infringement.
Condiment King?
Sorry?
Oh,
No.
oh,
David,
I see.
don't be
This is the,
stupid, okay? Just don't
I
be
see.
stupid.
This is the public domain, or the created by Daniel Fee character who deals with a specific condiment, but is very, very different from the Condiment King.
You literally just said it, apparently we can't say Condiment King's name because that's character infringement, all these fancy
Sure.
words. DC
Yeah, yeah.
lawyers, I think there's some international waters. I don't think they can do anything because I'm in Ireland. I think that's how it works. So legally they can sue me.
Well, I
Pretty
think
sure that's
Ireland isn't really in the water, but
No, but it's close enough. I went to the beach the other day and it seemed like it was a bit far away. So
there you go.
listen,
Just
that's
while
all
you're
you
riding
really.
on the beach on a boat or something.
Yeah, so can they really arrest me? There's only one way to find out. So that's it. It's big swings, big swings. No, David,
Big swing.
thank you so much for chatting with me. Are you on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, anything like that?
I am. I'm on Twitter at David B. Hayter and on Instagram at the_David_Hayter.
David, thank you so much, family. It's been such an amazing chat. Everyone, before we finish up, you can go follow me over on Twitter at SamboGizmo1 or just type in Daniel Fee33. As always, please make sure to like and subscribe. And you can go donate to the National Deaf Children's Society. Link for that in the description. But yeah, anything else I mentioned, you guys should all go check out. Go check out all of David's work, every single thing that you can. He is truly an immensely talented screenwriter. David, thank you so much for taking the time to chat with me, sir.
Daniel, I couldn't have enjoyed it more. This was awesome.
I
And
can't
great
wait. We'll share
questions. Thank you so
calamari
much.
when you come to Dublin. Might
Well,
try.
that would serve me right with a side of condiments.